Action.
Hello, Miss Greeks. Today, my partner Brandon Santiago and I, Hadeliu, we are going to present our speech about the recycling system in Panama and all around the world. So, I'm going to talk about the recycling system all around the world. Okay. We live in a material world. How our society uses materials is fundamental to many aspects of our economic and environmental future. Recycling is the process of turning waste and used items into new, useful materials or products. This not only gives the old items a new lease of life, it also reduces the amount of raw material used to make new things from scratch. Recycling conserves natural resources, saves energy, protects the environment, reduces landfill, and creates jobs. There are recycling programs all around the world. However, the richest countries seem to have a more developed recycling system. So, my thesis statement states that the recycle system is directly influenced by the economy of a country. The foundation that underlies the world economy, prosperity, and a healthy environment rests largely on how people extract and use the full range of materials that come from and return to the earth, such as wood, minerals, fuels, chemicals, agricultural plants and animals, soil, and rock. In the past 50 years, humans have consumed more resources than in all previous history. Since the late 1980s, our human footprint has exceeded the Earth's biocapacity. In economic terms, we are no longer living off nature's interests, but drawing down its capital. Globally, we can no longer presume that materials and resources we count on as abundant will remain so indefinitely. Prices for many materials are heavily influenced by global markets. During the past several years, increased demand caused worldwide prices for many raw and used materials to rise substantially. The recent economic situation, however, has reduced demand, causing prices for many materials to drop. The immediate effect of this has been to weaken the recycling markets. If prices stay low, demand may increase over time. However, neither of these trends is helpful for long-term materials management or the environment. In general, it is widely understood that the price system leads to economically efficient allocation of material resources. But that does not mean that it necessarily encourages sustainable materials management. For instance, over the past 200 years, real prices for many industrial raw materials have fallen, often because of improved technology and low energy prices. This has helped stimulate unparalleled economic growth, but, as mentioned above, it also has encouraged enormous increases in the amount of materials used around the world. Recycling sites are often unsafe and unhygienic. Places where all sorts of waste are dumped are conducive for debris formation and spread of disease and other dangers caused by harmful chemicals and waste. This not only causes widespread pollution, but is harmful for dedicated people who recycle such products. These may create more pollution as they would go under the process of cleaning, storage, and transportation. Even so, the advantages brought by recycling are much more than the disadvantages. Recycling uses less energy than making a new product from scratch, and because recycling saves energy, it also cuts down greenhouse gas emissions. Recycling helps to reduce air, water, and land pollution. It is also helping to slow down climate change as it helps to reduce the greenhouse effect. Recycling can reduce the need to create more landfill sites in the future. This helps in reducing water and land pollution, as landfills are a major source in contributing to the destruction of natural environment. Recycling is also good for the environment, and apart from that, it also creates green jobs. According to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, green goods and services accounted for 3.1 million jobs in the United States by 2010. Recycling is not always cost effective. Sometimes there may be a need to establish separate factories to process reusable products. Setting up new recycling unit involves high cost. This huge cost can come up as a part of acquiring different utility vehicles, operating the processing facility, educating residents by organizing seminars and other programs, disposing of existing waste and chemicals. The jobs produced by recycling industry can be a poor trade for the jobs lost in logging, mining, and other industries associated with production. Employment in coal mining has been declining along with the overall mining industry. This graph we have over here shows how the mining industry employment in the United States had declined from April 2015 to April 2016. It shows how jobs in the coal mining industry declined from 67,500 to 56,600. It is actually a loss of 10,900 jobs in 1 year. Okay. Austria and Germany have the highest recycling rates at 63 and 62%. 63 and 62% respectively. Both countries have a good economic status compared to those countries with the recycling system still under development. Austria is the 13th richest country in the world, while Germany is the largest national economy in Europe, the fourth in largest by nominal GDP in the world, and fifth by GDP. So what I have said have proven that the recycling system is actually directly influenced by the economy of a country. Thanks.
Okay, so now I'm going to talk about whether a recycling system in Panama exists. Well, the reality of the situation is that a recycling system in Panama does not really exist. There are some companies which will pay for items such as paper and metal so you can separate your recycling yourself and take it along, although the remuneration is low. If you do this, you will often encounter homeless people who have rummaged through bins for enough materials to raise money for a bottle of spirits. Recycling in Panama involves poorer citizens sorting through garbage at the city dump, searching for anything that they can find of value. The lack of trash collection is one of the biggest issues confronting the country right now at the moment. So here is an example of the picture. Here's in the city, in a city dump actually. So yeah, that's an example of how the poor people rummage on dumps. Okay, so my thesis statement. My thesis statement is the culture in Panama is not a conscious of the environment one. So what I mean by this is that the main issue regarding the recycling system in Panama is that the culture is not a recycling culture because it has not been inculcated, and I will further explain now why this is and how we can possibly fix this issue. So what is the cause of the lack of recycling? So the base of the issues of the recycling system in the country lies on the culture of the people, as said before in my thesis statement. School systems do not inculcate the recycling culture in Panama. In order to create a recycling culture in any country, whether Panama or all around the world, schools have to inculcate a recycling culture to the young people who are the future. An example of this is that the people in the rural areas, like in el interior, do not know much about the concept of recycling or the recycling system as a whole. For example, my mom, she studied in a public school in the Panama City, and says that when she was in school, although it was further years back, but it still applies, they didn't really explain what the concept of recycling was at the time. And another issue which shows the lack of the recycling culture is the lack of recycling events that are held in the country. There are not many recycling activities promoted in the country. And to top it all off, the recycling events that are done are not for are done for very short periods of time. So the solution, in my opinion, to this problem will be not done overnight. However, with the help of frequent events and the help of school systems to inculcate the recycling culture in Panama, Panama will begin to have a recycling culture. So here we have an example of a classroom in el interior, and so yeah. Okay, so recycling here in Panama. Recycling here in Panama is not as advanced as it is in the United Kingdom or in the United States. This is mostly because, as said before, the culture is not as developed as in the US or the UK. However, besides this, Panama is still not up to par in other aspects. To begin with, a technological foundation is missing to carry out this action. Also, due to some regulatory gaps, it is not possible to get the most out of this action. So now I'm gonna read something here regarding the regulatory gaps. So in 2012, 3/4 of the European-owned vessels broken on the beaches of South Asia were registered under non-EU flags such as Panama, Liberia, and Bahamas. With the new regulation being a further incentive to flag out, the amount of vessels still registered under a flag of an EU member state at end of life is likely to decline even further, delusioning number of ships, rendering the impact of the regulation not existent for the purpose of improving ships' recycling practices. The government has to get more involved in this matter. So that is another thing that I'm going to talk about, is the involvement of the government in this issue. So, how involved is the government in this action? So here we see President Varela, the current president of the Republic of Panama, the former president Ricardo Martinelli, and here we see workers of the Autoridad de Aseo in Panama City. So the government has been the guilty entity in this issue. The government has not created the inculcation of the recycling culture by the school systems in the country. The government does not promote the concept of recycling. An example of this is the fact that a person can barely see a trash can out in the streets, let alone a recycling bin. Also, there are not household collections for recyclable materials in households. These are things that do not happen in the United States or in the United Kingdom, which have, as stated before, recycling culture and a government who supports this concept of environmental awareness. The government of Panama, or my partner Jade talked about in the global aspect, and the government has to further incentivize the recycling culture in the school systems by also adding a specialized and specific course which is dedicated to the concept of environmental awareness. So there are three main ways for the government to do so. Okay, so the first one, address those issues to the people, basically encouraging the public to act, like arousing feelings of responsibility towards the good of the environment. Another way is to make it worthy for the common person to recycle. For example, giving money for each material recycled or other form of positive reaction. And three, punish those who don't recycle or cast other sanctions. These actions, for example, are done in Canada and other countries who are more developed in the recycling culture. So recycling is important because it is for the protection of the environment and human life as well. Pollution is known to cause various diseases not only to humans but to the entire ecosystem. It can also be considered as having economic advantages since the cost of treating both the pollution and ensuing illnesses can be dramatically reduced. The different materials are also limited. The natural resources that the earth provides us are not infinite. Thus, throwing materials that can be reused is a major blunder. So my conclusion. A recycling system in Panama does not really exist. The school systems do not inculcate the recycling culture in Panama. Recycling is not as advanced as it is in the US or the UK. There are not many recycling activities done in the country. However, although in the countries there may be events done, it is only for a short period of time. These events should be extended should be done for extended periods of time. A change of culture and way of thinking would be necessary to actually make a difference and recycle in a constant manner, and possibly make it an everyday thing, which will then we can say that the recycling culture has been achieved. So now we have here the bibliographies in which Jade and I got our information from, and thank you.